Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're finding out how many snakes we need to defeat Stockfish. The snake moves like a bishop but captures like a knight. Let's get started with game number one. Alright, game number one, as you can see, I've got my snake here on D1. It moves like a bishop. There's no captures available, but when there are, you will see that it can only capture like a knight. We'll be adding one for every game until we finally defeat Fairy Stockfish, which is just Stockfish that can play against these fairy pieces. At the end, we'll also pop up the evaluation to see how many of these Stockfish thinks is necessary to actually have an advantage. Now this one's kind of interesting because I have exactly one snake on the board, which to me seems like a really big issue because the snake can only move on the light squares until there's a capture available to it. Meaning if Stockfish never offers me a capture, the snake can never move onto another colored square, another dark square. And since it can only capture to dark squares, as long as the king is on a light square, it's always going to be perfectly protected. So here if I click on the snake, you can see we have the available capture on E7, which would be the equivalent of just giving away the snake, but we actually can't take the queen because it only moves like a bishop. It doesn't capture like a bishop. So it seems to be more of a drawback than an actual utility at the moment. I guess we'll just move the snake out of the way. There's a threat of back rank mate, and to be honest, I don't think there's anything I can do about it. I can try to block it, but now we have mate on B1. Nothing I can do about both of those, so we'll just make a move, and with that, we lose game number one. Let's go ahead and add a snake. All right, we now have two snakes on the board, and you'll notice that I placed another one on the left side of the king, and the reason I did this is because I'd rather alternate since they do function in some ways as a bishop. I'd rather start with a light squared snake and a dark squared snake so I can actually cover more of the board. You may have also noticed that the black army is actually missing some pieces, and this is because originally there were more fairy pieces on the back rank, and since these videos are really more of an exploration of the utility of these fairy pieces, I decided not to bog down the video with more rules about more fairy pieces. We're met with pawn to c5, and I'm still not sure how I'm supposed to get an attack going here. I mean, you'd imagine that I'd want to get my snakes nice and close to the king so that I can eventually deliver some sort of check, but with the pawns in the way, this is going to be quite a task. We get queen to a5, puts us in check. We'll walk up with the king. Pawn to c4, it's also going to be, if not impossible, very, very difficult to stop any of these pawns from promoting as long as they have a rook behind it. Now, in the perfect world, I find a way to coordinate these two snakes. So for example, something like snake to e4, threatening snake to f6. It gives check by moving like a knight. Were it to be captured by the pawn, I can recapture with the other snake, again capturing like a knight, and replace that check, and also the fork. Now, of course, the king would just move out of the way, and Stockfish could care less if it loses a rook, because it's still obliterating my position. But it's worth keeping in mind that that's probably the sort of tactic that's going to win us this game eventually. We get queen to e5, which does just pin the snake to the king, and I don't believe there's any way to protect that. I mean, we can move the snake back and then they defend each other, but right, Stockfish applies more pressure to the snake and it's officially a goner. Not much I can do about that, so we are going to run for our lives. And with that, we are checkmated. Let's go to move on to three snakes. All right, we now have three snakes on the board. It gives me a little bit more optimism. We'll start with a similar strategy, I guess, of developing the snakes. And what I'd like to do is have one snake on a light square protecting f6 and another snake on a dark square that can actually move to f6. That way we're actually threatening to trap the king. Of course, Stockfish is going to make that as much of a headache as possible by playing e5 and immediately cutting that off. I can't take it again because we only capture as a knight. But I can still develop my snakes towards the center. So let's play the snake to d3 so we can place it on e4. Get rook comes out to the side. I would play my snake to g4, but the problem is the queen comes out, gives check, and I don't believe there's a way for me to protect my king and the snake at the same time. So I guess we'll just grab the pawn on e5, say we got some material. We get checked by the queen. We'll move the king out of the way. And we are immediately put in check. And again, I don't think there's a way for us to hold on to both of these pieces. So we'll just run for our lives with the king. And while our position gets dismantled by Stockfish, I think now's a good time to mention that technically the name of these pieces is the beginning of bishop and the ending of knight put together, so technically it's bis-nai, but I felt that calling these bis-nai for the whole game would be a little bit annoying and possibly hard to keep track of, and it's a little more intuitive to just call them as they look, which is, they look like a snake. King can't move anywhere, so we have to block with one of our snakes. And we are, in fact, mated. 3 was not enough. Let's move on to 4 snakes. All right, 4 snakes on the board. I do feel a lot better about this. I do still think the strategy is to land one of these snakes on f6, meaning one of them would have to come in from a light square, say snake to g4, and the other from a dark square, say snake to d4, for example. So we'll start with snake to g4, get pawn to c5, which, funny enough, does stop. Well, maybe not funny enough. It's more likely an intentional move, but it's worth noting that it does stop my snake from moving to d4. Let's try it with the snake on b2 instead. Whoa, queen to a5 check. Is that immediately losing material? I have to move my king. There's no snake that can block safely. If I move over and the opponent gives any other check, I just run over and defend my snake. So that should be fine. I mean, there's no check here. This moves like a knight. I think this is okay, actually. Check again. Oh, Stockfish is immediately on the offense because the queen by herself is not going to mate me. But it is possible that it's trying to play a safer game. But we're dropping the snake. Never mind. It's not playing a safer game. It's just taking my snakes. Okay, we dropped the snake on f1. I really thought I had it on the ropes and then it might be looking for threefold as it did in the last episode, but we are not so lucky. Okay, were I to play check, takes, check, I just lose the snakes. So let's defend the snakes. Queen comes in with check, we'll move the king down. Rook comes over, wow, and there's no fear, is there? Again, now check is possible. The opponent would take, I take with my snake, check, the king moves out of the way, and I don't see a follow-up there, unfortunately. If we try to double down on that square, we just drop the snakes that defend each other. So I'm not really sure what to make of this. I think we might just be toast. In the spirit of the attack, let's play. Oh, that's not what I meant to play. That's so funny. I meant to play snake here, which I know you might be wondering, how on earth did you mean to play this snake when you moved this one? But I fell back on the idea that this was going to recapture like a knight, and then I tried to move it there, slipped my mouse, and then PieChess was kind enough to adjust my piece. Whoops, I did drop it on e6. That's my unfortunate doing. You do get rook to a1, which does mate us. Let's move on to 5 snakes. All right, 5 snakes now on the board. I'm genuinely curious at what point Stockfish will tell us that we have an advantage. Obviously, I don't have the eval bar up now, but at the end of the video, I will come back and add 1 snake at a time and see at what point Stockfish thinks it's a tipping point and we are actually winning. But for now, we have 5 snakes at our disposal. I'm very tempted to continue with the same idea, start again with the exact same opening and see if we can hold out a little bit better, because the problem is I don't see any other way to combat this. If we allow Stockfish to start developing its pieces enigmatically, it's going to find a very strange way to position its pieces, and the odds that I find a way to outplay the engine is just abysmally low. So I'm going to play for the same idea. We do get c5 again. If I play here, I'm going to assume we get queen here once more. So maybe, oh, it's difficult because there has to be a smothered mate of some kind that's forcing. Not necessarily in this position, but that will ultimately be our winning opportunity. I can almost guarantee that, especially based on how the last video went. It's going to be something absolutely ridiculous, like, you're supposed to play your snake here to sack it on d6 with check. The king, moves out of the way, and then the snakes like weirdly defend each other somehow and give mate to the king. It's going to be something along those lines. It's going to be something probably very difficult to see, but we're going to try our best to spot it. We'll go for the same idea for now. We are checked again. There's no follow-up check. Right, okay, so we get forked instead, which I'm actually significantly happier with. I do have the opportunity to play check, should the opponent, or rather, let's do this correctly. Check would be this way because it moves like a bishop. The pawn would take, I would take back with the snake, giving check once more, the king moves out of the way. But again, I don't see what our follow-up is there. I mean, we could continue to sacrifice, check, draw the king out even further, but at that point, we're just dropping snakes to lure the king out to a basically invisible attack. We'll at least give this first check. See what Stockfish plays. Okay, Stockfish moves its king up, which tells me it has no fear in this position, and I'm going to assume that is totally justified. Would be beautiful to be able to play here, but again, it doesn't move like a knight, it only captures like a knight. So I guess we'll move the snake out of the way, have them defend each other. We're checked again. Oh, and we're hit here on g1. Yeah, having the king exposed is incredibly difficult. I actually did consider giving myself a couple of pawns, but I feel like that ruins the experience of winning with just snakes alone. Not to mention, this is a much more rigorous way to learn the length of the capabilities of these pieces. So I guess we'll move the king out of the way. We do drop the snake on g1. This one is pinned to the king. Our winning chances dwindle by the minute. Doesn't mean that we won't fight onward. Oh, I like that little idea. So the snakes defend each other as a knight, but you can actually move across a diagonal and still have the snakes defending each other. I have no idea how useful that actually is, but it's highly amusing. In fact, we can continue the pattern upwards. Okay, we are checked, dropping the snake behind us. This king is going to run for its life and immediately be cut off by Stockfish. Check. I'll move back up, I guess. And we are mated on d3. All right, let's go to move on to 6 snakes. All right, 6 snakes now on the board. Actually, I feel much better about this. And actually, I'm highly justified in that because I immediately see the idea of moving the snake down to b7 and the queen is trapped. So we'll start there. I'm going to assume some sort of skewer, right? We take the queen. Oh, and it actually decides to take on b1, which is very interesting. This snake is probably as good as gone. The only legal move it has is taking on f7. So I guess I should just let it go. I would sacrifice here, but should the opponent take, I guess I could just move it away, right? I think that's fine. So we'll start by sacrificing on f7. They do capture, and now we can just move the snake far, far away. Let's say to d5, so we're actually threatening something on the board. Oh, we get, oh my goodness. Absolutely beautiful sacrifice, and only works because the snake is on d5. Wow, I should have taken a moment to calculate that right. If I take, Stockfish just takes on d1, I move the king out of the way, I drop the snake. Wow, that is disgusting. I'll offer you this one. Okay, of course it takes this one because that was the one threatening to take on c7. I'm still going to fight this out, either out of ego, stubbornness, whatever you'd like to call it. Surely a sack here is losing for me. Oh my goodness, it's going to try to draw away my king. Let's move the snake upwards. We're checked. Oh my goodness, and I can't even take here because check loses the snake, and there's no other checks on the board either. Wow, that is not great. Okay, we'll just go for the sack, simplify the position. This is completely losing to Stockfish, but I do feel like the fact that it only had a rook and a pawn left after I blundered a tactic means we should almost certainly be winning in the next game. I'm sure you guys believe just as much as I believe that Stockfish is very capable of destroying me with a rook and a pawn, so we'll speed through this. Stockfish efficient as ever. Let's go to move on to 7 snakes. All right, small issue, which I didn't actually think about, and that is the fact we have mate in 1 on the board. Now, I don't actually know if that means that with 6 snakes alone, we are still better. It's possible that this is only winning for us because we have mate in 1 on the board. I will play it out and I will call it a victory because I've played it just like this in all of these games where I've given myself 1 fairy piece at a time, but I'd be lying if I told you it didn't feel like cheating just a little bit. So I'm gonna play another game where I place this snake elsewhere. All right, we've now moved the snake to e2, so mate in 1 is no longer on the board. We still have this tactic, winning the queen. We'll go ahead and capture. The king does take back, and now let's maybe not fall for any more silly tactics. Let's start moving the snake outward so I can play it to c3. That way they all sort of defend each other. We'll develop this snake to the middle of the board. e5 is very aggressive. I'll just move my snake back 1 square, pawn to c6, develop another snake. I like that they all defend each other. That's pretty much my main concern. And the fact that these snakes attack like knights means we should also be looking for forks, despite the fact that they do move like bishops. Let's move the snake over. King comes up. We could play this check just to try to undress the king. I don't know if it's justified. So let's make a waiting move. Oh, these pawns coming upward are quite a pain though. Wait, can I just take? Oh, we get forked here. Oh, beautiful find by Stockfish. On the bright side, it is 2 pawns for a snake, which is better than the deal that I was going to allow. And actually, it doesn't work. I can just move back. Because if the pawn takes, I have snake to e6. Oh, beautiful find. Wait, I just found an amazing tactic. That was great. It might still be worse somehow because now we're skewered here, but I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't very proud of that find. All right, we'll move the snake. Oh, if we move the snake down, you take. I take here and I drop another snake right behind it. Hold on a second. Okay, we'll move the snake back this way. The rook does take. I'll move up so the snakes defend each other. We're threatening this pawn, so it moves forward. Fair enough. We'll move up with the king to threaten the pawn. Nice, we can just take it, I believe. The rook takes, I take back. That seems like a rather desperate sacrifice. Rook to b8 threatens the snake on b1. Oh, is it trapped? Oh, it is trapped. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and there's no snake, other snake rather, that can move to these squares to defend it. So I guess I just have to move it out of the way. Oh, is it looking for a draw? That's kind of funny. Okay, let's move upwards. Rook back to b8. Wow, do I really not have a way to get out of this? That's pretty annoying. Snake up again. Oh yeah, it's just going to, oh, it's like trapped my snake here on the side of the board. That's a rather weird drawback of the way the snake moves. Wow, weirdly enough, I think there's just nothing I can do about that. Yeah, because the thing is, I have 4 snakes now, all on light colored squares, and they move like bishops, so they can never switch colors unless they capture a piece and that moves them to a different colored square. So I might just be stuck with a draw here. Yeah, if I lose the snake, I don't think 3 snakes is going to be enough for me to defeat Stockfish. So with that, we do get a draw with 7 snakes. Let's go to move on to 8 snakes. All right, we now have 8 snakes on the board. We'll go ahead and start with the exact same tactic, threatening the queen, take the queen. And now I have to be much more aware about keeping snakes on different colors. I don't want to have too many snakes of one specific color. The pawn comes up. Let's go here to cover f4. Pawn to e5 tries to force that idea. We'll move more snakes towards the middle. We do get pawn to f4, which I think we can just sacrifice for. And we do have a disproportionate number of dark squared snakes compared to our light squared snakes, but I still think we're totally fine. Okay, we'll play here so the snakes defend each other. These two are the only ones that are disconnected at the moment. These two connect and these two connect. Pawn to d4 very much tempts a sacrifice, and I think I'm going to accept it. So we'll take and take. We now have 3 light squared snakes and 2 dark squared snakes, which I think should be plenty for a victory. We'll play here. All of the snakes defend each other. Again, they move as knights, so that's what we want to watch out for. And as long as we don't get fooled by some silly tactic, we should be totally winning here. Again, they all defend each other as knights. We do get pinned. We'll move out of the way, no issue. The rook comes down. Now we have to start looking at how we're actually going to win this game. Let's move over. The idea there was check, and I think Stockfish sensed that and moved back. We'll play check anyways, and move another snake into defense. We're checked, which does drop the rook, but then drops our snake as well. We now have 3 light squared snakes, 1 dark squared snake, and I think that means we have to protect this one pretty closely. So we'll move the snake over. King moves up. We'll move our snake over, looking for check. Okay, they now all see each other. So far, so good. This is the only one that's basically hanging loose. Rook comes up, we'll just shuffle over, and as long as we continue to approach Stockfish with more and more snakes, I'm pretty sure we should just eventually be completely winning. I think 2 snakes is probably enough to mate, so I'm going to look to block this check with another snake. So far, so good. Not to mention, should Stockfish try to sacrifice, 1 light squared snake actually becomes another dark squared snake. We'll move the snake back, looking for check. King moves back as well, so check. Check, move the king back is our goal, and we seem to be accomplishing it quite nicely. Another check just allows the king to come back, but if I move forward, there's check. So I guess I'd have to move the king out of the way, which is probably fine. Okay, the rook comes down, check again. King moves over. Okay, this has to be winning. Check. King goes back, check, over, check. Why is this not completely winning? Hold on. What am I missing here? I guess we should play this, but my fear is that I'm going to stalemate it by accident. So what if I move my king up first? Here would pin my snake, which would be quite annoying. Let me calculate this for a moment. Yeah, this should be winning. Oh, the king just comes up. Wait, what am I doing? That's literally what I thought about as well. Okay, check. King goes back. We'll just move more snakes into the position. I think that's reasonable. King comes up. Check again. Oh, and the king has escaped. Okay, wait a minute. We'll move back. This is not ideal by any means, and we only have 5 minutes on the clock to finish this off. Okay, we now have 1 snake anchoring all the others, but the problem is, how on earth do I make progress in this position? Oh, that seemed to have worked. Okay, we've now managed to grasp the center again. It's by no means winning, but it's much more promising than whatever was happening before. Okay, we're slowly starting to corner the king. Let's move back so he can't escape this way, and here. If we play check, it can move back, but I think that's still better for us. So he moves forward instead. We'll play back to try to cut off the rook. The king moves back instead. Okay. Okay, we've backed the king up into a corner. We're now pinned here. Check moves the king out of the way, and there's no forcing mate again because we are pinned. So we'll just bring even more pieces into the attack. Oh, this has to be mate somehow. Check here is mate? No, the king just moves out of the way. Oh, check. This is illegal. This would be forced. So maybe snake back. Oh no, we've drawn! Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Wow, it's so difficult to actually mate Stockfish when it can play the most precise moves possible and pin those snakes to your king. All right, let's go to move on to 9 snakes, I guess. Yeah, because the truth is I'm not happy at all about the idea of winning, quote unquote, with 7 snakes just because you have mate in 1 from the starting position. That's almost definitely cheating. Taking the queen is not though, apparently. We will take, okay, I just have to keep my head on my shoulders. Let's just play it calm and cool, make sure that everybody defends everybody else, and at some point, Stockfish has to concede that we're just significantly stronger. Let's play this, again, covering f4. Okay, continue to advance my snakes. I can sacrifice, and I will. Let's continue to develop, making sure they're all nice and connected as knights. Let's advance, we're covering f3 perfectly fine. That is just absolutely free. That is pinned, so I should move my king out of the way, but I won't because it's also protected. So we'll just continue to advance the king. I have to get checkmate here. There's no way I'm finishing this off without mating Stockfish with my snakes. I just have to. Everybody's defended, so I can just continue to advance again. The rook does move back. More snakes into the attack. Again, everybody's defended. So far, so good. Even more snakes. More snakes now threatening a rook. The rook moves over. We'll threaten it again with a different snake. Again, all defended. Nice, that's free with check. We move back. Just don't stalemate him, and this is completely winning. There's no way this is not completely winning. Okay, we continue to advance. There's no need for anything fancy, funky, or otherwise abnormal. Continue to advance my snakes. So far, so good. We'll give, check. Wow, we don't even get the rook sacrifice, so it's definitely comfortable that it can hold on to this position, but I just need to attack one of these two pieces. So I'll move one of my snakes here so I can threaten that. Oh, and it wants to take. That's so sneaky, because if I take back, then it's a draw. Interesting idea. Okay, I will concede. I didn't see that idea. I'll move my snake back. It does the same. We'll move down to threaten the mate. The rook gives check. Oh, and I can't take, well, can I take it this way? Yeah, I can take it this way. Nice, the king moves over, and this has to be forcing mate somehow. We'll start with, okay, I should just calculate this. I have 7 minutes, almost 8. It has to be forcing, so I just have to calculate it out. There has to be mate there somehow. Check. Check again. Oh wow, I've just noticed I have all of these different colored, or rather all of these dark squared snakes and only one light squared snake, which I think might be a huge issue. So check again. King moves back down. I'll move here. If I take, king moves up. Can I force mate there? I have no idea. Okay, I wonder if I can force, I don't know if this is a far-fetched idea, but it seems to be the most humanly possible way to do this, which is to try to force Stockfish into moving the pawn so I can take. I'd have no idea if that's actually concrete, but check. Okay, this I think I feel better about. Yes, yeah, this I definitely feel better about because now there are legal moves for the pawn, which means stalemate is much less likely. I can actually push the king into a corner where he has no legal moves. The pawn has to move, and then eventually I can get mate. So we'll stop the king from escaping this way again. He moves up, sure. Let's play here. We've now blocked off all of these possible squares. We want to block off even more. We'll play this. Oh wow, and now it's a race. I move here, the pawn moves forward. I move here, because the problem is I have to cover this square. I can't actually deliver mate yet because the king can move back out. So I think I just need to cover this square and then move the snake up to g6. And that should be mate. Nice! And with that, it takes us 9 snakes to actually defeat Stockfish. Let's go ahead and pop up the analysis board and see how many Stockfish thinks we actually needed. All right, we're now at the analysis board. You'll see that if we start with 6 snakes, we're actually -2 according to the eval bar, so we're still at a disadvantage, which practically speaking means we have no odds against Stockfish whatsoever. But if we add a snake, not on A1, because Stockfish agrees that this is mate in 1, but if we add a snake on E2, then you'll notice that Stockfish says that we're actually +2 on the position. It does still think this is the best first move, immediately trapping the queen. After rook to b8, this? Is it worse if I just take the queen? Oh my goodness, it says it's not worse, but it's significantly better to actually just block with the snake. And what's the issue? Why can't he just capture on b? Oh, because it's mate! Oh, that's such a smart idea. We're still actually threatening the queen because should they take, it's actually mate on g7. We never even thought, well, you guys might have. It never occurred to me to use this idea, this previous information that we were threatening mate on g7 as a sort of tactic. So it's basically defending the snake on b1 with this knight connection by threatening checkmate on g7, which is absolutely insane. Now, just out of curiosity, I'm going to throw 9 snakes onto the board and see how much of an advantage I actually had against Stockfish in that final game. All right, yep, in the final game, it seems I had a +8 point advantage, which is about the equivalent of having an extra queen on Stockfish, minus the fact that the position is already heavily simplified, so it's not exactly the same thing. And with that, we conclude our investigation into the snake piece. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below what other fairy pieces I should play against Stockfish with, and I will see you guys in the next one.